There is a funeral story so fascinating and barbaric that it's difficult to believe it actually happened. Yet, it's a true account. It is so brutal and horrific that after watching, will make you question the barbaric nature of the people in medieval times. This funeral was witnessed and recorded by the middle-aged explorer Ahmed Ibn Fadlan, who encountered Vikings on his journey in the Volga River in Rus' modern-day Russia. Ibn Fadlan recorded his entire journey from his home in Baghdad to Rus, but what stands out most in his narration is the fascinating and brutal sight of a Viking funeral. Before we start the video, if you like to hear more fascinating stories like these, please like and subscribe so you don't miss out, and it will also support our work. In the year 922, some diplomats arrived in the great Abbasid capital of Baghdad, all the way from far north of the known world, to ask a favor from the Caliph. These were the Volga Bulgars, a Turkic Rus people from Volga, Bulgaria, which is now modern Russia. These people had decided to convert to Islam, but they lacked proper guidance to establish systems and practices. They asked the Caliph to send a scholar to their people and grant them some funds to establish mosques. The Abbasid Caliph granted them funds and sent an Arab diplomat named Ahmed Ibn Fadlan to Volga, Bulgaria. His task was to provide them with religious instruction and to build diplomatic ties. But Ibn Fadlan was more than just a diplomat. He was also a keen observer, recording everything he saw on his journey. His journey would take him through treacherous lands and unknown territories. But it wasn't the harsh landscape or the dangerous roads that would haunt Ibn Fadlan for the rest of his life. It was the people he encountered along the way. These people were not like anyone he had ever met before. They were fierce and imposing, and their customs were as strange as they were terrifying. And it all began when Ibn Fadlan first laid eyes on the Viking warriors of Rus. One day, as they camped along the Volga River, a group of men appeared on the horizon. They came in long, narrow boats, unlike anything Ibn Fadlan had seen before. As they drew closer, he could make out their strange appearance. Ibn Fadlan says, "I have never seen a more perfect physical specimen." The men are fine and tall, with long flowing hair, and are adorned with intricate green tattoos from toe to neck. Their clothing was made of animal skins, and they carried large menacing axes, which they always kept with them all the time. Their women wore fine jewelry, made of iron, copper, silver, and bronze, depending on the wealth of their husbands. Now, the Vikings are known to us today as fierce warriors and seafarers from Scandinavia. But to Ibn Fadlan, they were a people he had only heard rumors about, rumors that did little to prepare him for what he was about to witness. As the Vikings disembarked from their boats, they set up camp not far from where Ibn Fadlan and his men were staying. Despite the initial tension, the two groups began to interact, and Ibn Fadlan was both fascinated and horrified by what he saw. The Viking Rus were a stark contrast to the refined and cultured world of the Abbasid Caliphate. Just like Ibn Fadlan praised their strength, he also criticized their hygiene habits. He says that the Vikings were unhygienic and disgusting. Every member of the house would wash their hands, blow their nose, and wash their face in the same water bowl without changing the water. They had no privacy when doing intimacy, and their habits were, to say the least, unusual. Ibn Fadlan commented, "These people are like wild asses." But what struck him the most were their rituals surrounding death and funeral. Ibn Fadlan says that one day he was invited to witness a funeral. A Viking chieftain had died, and the entire tribe began preparations for the funeral. First, the dead body of the chieftain was buried in a temporary grave for about 10 days, while his family and people prepared the resources for the funeral. The dead chieftain's belongings, including weapons and treasure, were gathered to be placed with him on his journey to the afterlife. One day, family members of the chieftain would ask all his female slaves, "Who among you would wish to die with your master?" One slave girl answered, "I will." After this, there was no turning back. This was a common practice among the Vikings, where a slave girl would be sacrificed to serve the deceased in the next world. Over the next few days, the girl was closely attended, given large amounts of alcohol, and was constantly surrounded by other women who comforted her. On the day of the ritual, the chosen women would go into each of the dead man's male acquaintances' tent one by one and have intercourse with them. Each man would say to the girl, Tell your master that I only did this for your love of him." After that, she said goodbye to her female companions, and then the girl was led into a house where she would be gang raped by 6 men. While this was happening, a group of Viking warriors would stand outside the house and bang their shields with staffs to make a loud noise that would drown the voice of the screaming girl in the house. Ibn Fadlan then went on the bank of the Volga River on the day of the funeral. There, he saw a ship of the chieftain. Inside the ship was a luxurious couch covered with ornate Byzantine silk blankets. All the treasures and weapons of the dead man were placed on the boat. Spices, herbs, beer, and fruit were also placed on the ship. Then they sacrificed the livestock that was owned by the man. Chickens, cows, horses, and even a dog were sacrificed, and their flesh was placed on the ship. Standing alongside the boat was an old, ugly, fat woman, which the Vikings referred to as the Angel of Death. When the ship was ready, the dead body of the chieftain was taken out from the temporary grave and placed on the couch on the ship. Then the slave girl was led into the ship. 2 Viking warriors arrived and lifted the girl 3 times on the platform, at which the girl would say something. Ibn Fadlan asked a nearby onlooker, "What did she say?" The person would say, when she is lifted the first time, she would say, "Behold, I see my father and mother." The second time she says, "Behold, I see my ancestors." The third time she says, "Behold, I see my master." The girl then meets the Angel of Death and hands her 2 gold bracelets. The Angel of Death would give her a bowl of alcohol to drink. Then the girl was forced to lay with her master. A group of Viking warriors would start beating their shields, while some warriors would hold the girl as the Angel of Death strangles her and strikes a dagger in her ribs. After all the sacrifices and rituals were performed, the ship was set on fire. Ibn Fadlan wrote, "I was watching the flames on the ship with fascination and horror when a nearby Rus warrior spoke something to me while he was laughing. My interpreter, who was with me, translated, 'You Arabs are foolish. You take the most beloved and respected person among you and bury them in the ground only for the parasites to eat them. We Rus people burn our dead so that they enter paradise in that very moment. Our gods send winds that carry them to the afterlife immediately." Ibn Fadlan's account of the Viking funeral is one of profound shock and horror. Through his detailed observation, Ibn Fadlan reveals the stark cultural differences between his own society and that of the Viking Rus. He was deeply disturbed by the ritual's brutality, particularly the sacrifice of the slave girl, which he saw as a barbaric and inhumane act. Ibn Fadlan's experience is a powerful reminder of how different societies can be, especially in their attitudes toward life, death, and the afterlife. His writings leave readers with a sense of the raw and primal nature of the Vikings, contrasted against the more structured and ritualistic world of the Islamic civilization he came from. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future stories. This is Wild Storian, and we will see you next time.